For the last couple years, there's been an underlying murmur. I don't want to call it a rumor, but a murmur of another ammo shortage. And I've talked about that a bit, but the aspect I was worried about was the military aspect, all the ammo going to Ukraine. How are we going to dig our way out of that thing? And the U.S. Army did a great job digging themselves out. And since then, there's still this underlying murmur of an ammo shortage. And I believe there's so many variables involved in that point towards no. And a lot of that revolves around two major factors. Number one, a rush on ammo. If there's a citizen-wide, nationwide rush on ammo, we could be in trouble. There's just a big, all of a sudden, kind of like we saw at the beginning of 2020, where all of a sudden just everybody in America went out and bought a bunch of ammo. But even then, the ammo manufacturers are in a much better position than they were back then. They have bigger factories, better equipment, more raw material, more employees, more shifts, using AI, that sort of thing. But the other aspect of it is really primers, because you can only make a bullet assuming you have a primer. So it doesn't matter how great your equipment is and how much raw material you have for the rest of the bullet. If you're missing the primer, that changes everything, and that was the problem. So I believe the biggest problems that would point towards something being an issue or not would be, is there a rush on ammo, yes or no? And do we have an abundance of primers, yes or no? Now, I start this conversation this way to talk about the primers specifically because there's a bunch of primers out there right now that are hovering in a price range that is too high. It's too high. And I believe a lot of the reasons why it's too high is because people are willing to pay it. There's still this underlying murmur of another ammo shortage, and the first thing to go is typically the primers. But the problem with that, and this is really where the warning comes in, is don't buy those primers. Because what you've had just over the last 3 or 4 months is you have this brand new factory, White River Energetics, outside Searcy, Arkansas. Very beautiful area, wide open plains. And they're pumping out more primers than ever before that we've ever been able to do in this country. And that's just been in the last few months. So what's taking place is there's going to be a saturation of primers coming up because supply is high, demand is low. But I want to talk about the price of these primers, the ones that you should not buy. Do not buy these primers. If you don't buy them, well, prices are going to come down quicker. And really what I'm talking about is you're going to find a ton of primers, and we're in the per thousands. Small caliber, kind of like a 9mm. Don't pay over $130 for 1,000. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. And most of them are really in the $130 to $150 for 1,000 of these small primers. And that's way too much money. What you should be paying, and you will be paying when the market is saturated in the very near future, well, as it's really becoming saturated now, what you should be paying is about $100 to $110 for 1,000 of the small arms. And even then, you could probably get it under 100, but no more than 110. Now, when it comes to bigger bullets, like your rifle cartridges, your 30 caliber cartridges, don't pay, what most people are asking is around $140 to $170 for 1,000 of these. Don't pay that. Don't pay that. And if you're buying 500, just cut that price in half. Don't pay that. What you should be paying is about $110 to $120 at the most for 1,000 of the bigger bullet primers. And anything else you just need to stay away from. So I'm making this video because I think it's incredibly important to say, hey, don't buy those primers, because what's about to happen is there's going to be a massive saturation of primers in America, and it's currently saturating right now. And those prices are inevitably going to come down, especially as people who are sitting on them continue to sit on them and are unable to sell them, and then more are coming in, less are going out. That's when you want to buy. So, you know, and I'm here to tell you that if you just look for a little bit, you'll find like the smaller caliber for 100, 110, for 1,000. You'll find them. Just spend a few minutes looking. You'll find the larger rifle ones, 110 to 120. Just look, you'll find them. Take the time to look. Don't pay over 110 for the small caliber. Don't pay over 120 for the larger caliber for 1,000 rounds. Definitely don't be in the 150 for 1,000 of the small caliber, 170 for the larger caliber, because you're just encouraging what it is that's going to continue until we decide to make that change. And the only way that we can decide to make that change is just say, you know what, that's too much money. We know that there's this new factory in Arkansas pumping out a ton of primers. We're not worried about primers. We're not panicking about primers. Pay a reasonable price for primers, because the market is currently becoming saturated and will be saturated probably by the end of February. Definitely by the end of the first quarter, this market is going to be saturated with primers, unless there's some sort of strange rush on ammo by the citizens nationwide. Then you might see some issues then. But outside that, the market's going to be saturated. Just wait. Don't pay more than 110 for the small calibers per 1,000. Don't pay more than 120 for the larger calibers per 1,000, and really pay less than that, but don't pay more than that. So, all right, well, there you go, man. Love to know your thoughts on this, especially what you're seeing around your neighborhood as far as the prices of primers per 1,000. What are you seeing? What do you think's reasonable to pay? What do you think's unreasonable to pay? That sort of thing. Put that below. I do want to take a moment and say most people watch the channel, hey, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. Greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.